Hello and welcome everyone. This is Brad from LightArchitect. Today I'm going to be going through a very exciting tutorial in showing you how to light a scene with LightArchitect. In the last video, I showed you how to import environments from Sketchfab, such as this environment here, as well as 3D people from Render People, like this person right here. The models we will be using today, other than the LightArchitect assets, we will be using this model here, Varignana New by Adelmo. Again, commercial users allowed. And then also May Posed 001 from Render People. If you need to know how to import these people into your scene, then go ahead to our last tutorial on how you can do that. So we're going to start from the beginning here, but this is the end result of our scene here. This is what I will be going through in the tutorial today. We have a techno crane, we have several lights, and at the end I'm going to show you how to add a rain machine to your scene. So let's go ahead and clear this back to our initial setup and get started. Alright, so here we have where we left off in our last tutorial after we imported our environment and our person. What we're going to do in this tutorial is make kind of a cool night setup. If you go here to show how to render, this kind of render and lighting setup is what I'll be showing you how to create. We can also experiment with some movement, but this is the general concept. Let's start by adding a camera. Remember that if you don't have the two LightArchitect sidebars, then you need to go back to the installation video that will show you how to get LightArchitect installed for Blender. This tutorial is assuming you've done all the previous ones. Let's go ahead and go to our LightArchitect panel here, and then we're going to go to Camera Rigs. And we have a variety of rigs available to us, but just for fun, we're going to use this model based on the Movie Bird 45 Techno Crane. So let's go ahead and click that here. Anytime you add a model from LightArchitect, it's going to come into the middle of your scene right here. This model is very simple to use. You have your position control down here at the bottom. If you right click on that, then you press G, you can drag it wherever you like. Then if you press X after you selected G, then you can remove it along the X axis. And then if you press Y after pressing G, you can move it along the Y axis. And then if you press Z after pressing G, you can move it along the Z axis. On the back here, we have our Movie Bird arm control. If we selected this by clicking right click, then we can press G and move our arm as we desire. And we can even animate it through animation tools. The third control we have is the arm length control. So if we go to the end of our techno crane here, there's a empty here that will allow you to control the length of the techno crane. So if we press G while that is selected, we can extend or retract the techno crane as we desire. Let's go ahead and move this out here. Finally, we have this final control here. This controls where this head looks. If we select it by right clicking it and we press G, then we can move it around, and wherever we move this, the camera will stay pointed at. The cool thing about this rig is that even if we decide to move the arm using this arm control, for example, if I press G and I press Z, the camera always points at whatever you tell it to point at. Anyway, let's find a position for our techno crane. We're going to do some kind of moody scene here, maybe create some kind of crime scene type look. So let's go ahead and find a end position for the camera. We're going to select position control and then press G and then Y, move it straight ahead. We're going to grab our arm length control, right clicking this right here, and we're just going to contract this a little bit. Make it a little bit shorter. And then we'll also press on our position control again, press R and then Z, and rotate it a little bit this way. And then we're just going to position it so we have kind of a medium shot on our character here. So now that we're kind of in the general position, we're going to open up a second window here. So if we go to the top here, right in between our viewing panel and this sidebar here, your cursor becomes this kind of cross. Let's go ahead and click and then drag over. And we're creating kind of a new window. And then let's go ahead and close this on the side here. One thing that I like to do is I like to view through the camera in one of our windows and then view the wider shot of the scene in the main window. That's what we're going to do here. And now we're going to position our camera more accurately. Let's go ahead and swing our arm around here. So let's select our arm control, press G and then X. And then let's go ahead and point our camera at our character here. We kind of lost our pan and tilt control, but if we press Z, we can see it's hiding over here. So now we can change where we're looking at. So just press G, drag it over to our character. So let's bring this back a little bit and bring it over. and just kind of play around until you get a shot that you like. We bring our actual Technocrane back a little bit. We're just kind of adjusting our frame here. And so this might be kind of a nice end frame. What might be cool to do is crane from above her. If we select our arm control here, we can press G and then Z. Then we can bring the crane down into her world. And we can do other things too. We can even press G and Y, and we can do some kind of crazy movement on the side here. And again, it's always pointing at our character here because we have our pan and tilt control by our character. And of course we can animate any of these controls, and I'll show you how to do that, but for this tutorial we're going to stay relatively static. As I showed you in the last tutorial, there are several different ways to view your scene inside of Blender 3D. They can be changed by selecting this button right here. So right now on the left panel here we have our solid view being shown. I recommend actually going into material view so you can kind of better see what you're looking at in your scene. And in the right side here, we are actually looking at material mode as well. When you actually get to lighting your scene, I recommend switching to rendered mode. Rendered mode is going to calculate the lighting in your scene based on the lighting units that you provided. Right now it's black because we have no lights. Before we start lighting, I want to show you how to change lenses really quick. So if you just navigate over to our camera here, you'll see this box at the edge of our camera. You go ahead and select it by right-clicking it. Then you're going to go over to our panel here to the camera tab, and then you can change your focal length right here. I want to shoot on a 24mm lens, so I'm going to select our focal length here and press 24, enter, and it's changing the focal length of our camera. And so now, since we've changed that a little bit, let's go ahead and bring this back. Something like that. One thing I should mention is that to view through your camera on either panel, you simply go to one of the view buttons. So if I wanted to view the camera through this panel, I just go to View Camera, and we'll bring you into our scene here. So if I wanted to view through the camera lens on this panel as well, then I would do the same thing. I would go to View Camera. If you're having trouble viewing through your camera using those steps, then you're going to want to go to the Scene tab right here, and then make sure that your camera is selected. It should be selected by default, but if it's not, if it shows nothing here, then go ahead and click on this button here and then select your camera. Then you should be able to see through your camera just fine. Anyway, let's get started lighting our scene. The first thing we're going to do is just add a very basic sky, because even if it's completely dark outside, sometimes you can see the sky. So I'm going to go to this world panel right here and press New, and then as you can see, if we press our rendered view, we actually have a background now. We don't want this kind of background, we want to have a sky. So we're going to go to this button right by color and then go to sky texture. Now as you can see, we have a nice skylight, but we are doing a night scene. So to control the intensity of the sky, we're just going to go to the strength here and bring it down to maybe 0.02. Something like that. One thing that might be nice to start out with is a nice ambient soft top light motivated by either the sky or the moon. So what we might do is go over to the softboxes and then go to overhead softboxes 30 by 30. And when you click on that, an awesome truck crane will come into your scene that's fully controllable and fully rigged for however you want to use it. Before we position our softbox here, I'll just give you some basic tips on how to control this crane. It's very similar to our Technocrane, but there are a few things that are a little bit different. If you select the softbox here by right-clicking it, you can press G and drag it to whatever height you would like. Then if you go down to the bottom here, this is the general position control. Just like the Technocrane, you can drag it wherever you like. If you select this and press R, you can press Z afterwards and then rotate it wherever you like. Then, just like the Technocrane, we have a arm length control here. So if we select this, then we press G, we can drag it to whatever height we would desire. And then at the top here, we have two controls. One is the first arm control, and the second is this second arm control. So let's go ahead and top light this house. Let's go ahead and drag our truck crane over to the side here, and then press RZ, rotate it around. So we're getting kind of a top light. Let's go to View Top. Now we're viewing our scene through the top. To drag around while staying in top view, you just hold down Shift while pressing your middle cursor button. So now we can drag without it rotating all over the place. And then now we're going to top light our character as well as our house. So let's go ahead over here. Maybe actually what we want to do is extend our crane a little bit so we don't have to be so close, just in case we start from a wider shot Okay, so maybe something like this. Maybe we want to bring it over a little bit. Maybe bring it down. Something like this should work. So let's go ahead and go to render view on our camera side. Go to render. Right now we're getting a nice soft ambient top light, but we're going to do some basic adjustments here. While we're in rendered mode on the right side of the panel here, we're going to adjust some of the properties of our softbox here. I think our position is pretty good for now, but let's go ahead and bring up the intensity of our light here. So go ahead and select the light attached to our softbox. So if you just right click right under the softbox, it should be highlighted here. We're going to go over to our lighting tab here and select it, and then adjust the color and the strength of our light. So let's go ahead and make this light a little bit cooler. So we'll go ahead and select the color and then just bring a little more blue into the scene. And as you can see, that gives it a little bit more of a night look. Let's go ahead and adjust the strength of the light as well. Maybe bring it up a little bit. Maybe we try 2400 maybe. Let's see, or 24,000 I mean. That's giving us a lot more to deal with. Now normally on set, of course, you'd want to take light readings of what's coming out of this softbox here, but we at LightArchitect are still in the process of researching how to make a digital meter for the program. But anyway, this is looking pretty good for kind of an ambient setup. We're going to add some things definitely, but for our ambient light, it's looking very nice. So let's keep on going here. One thing that's really cool about LightArchitect is that we have these practical sources available to you. Maybe she's some kind of private investigator and this is a crime scene. Maybe we want to give her some kind of flashlight. Here are a bunch of practical sources you can choose from, but what we're looking for is Handheld sources flashlight. And once you click on flashlight, it will come into your scene here at the very middle. Go ahead and drag it over to her, and we're going to just put it right in her hand here. Something like this. Just press R, rotate it. So now she has a flashlight with her. Now we can change the brightness and color of this light, but for now we're going to leave it as it is. Another thing that might be cool, if she's some kind of private investigator investigating a crime scene, maybe there will be some work lights all around here. In LightArchitect, we have practical work lights that we can add. So let's go ahead and go to work lights. We have several different types here. We'll go with standing to start out with. And when you click it, again, it should come into the middle of your scene here. And then we'll just go ahead and drag this to somewhere we want in the scene. So let's just start putting a whole bunch of work lights in various areas. So I'm just pressing G and then X, Y, or Z to drag our work light along to whatever axis we want. So we're just going to put some work light off in the side here, just in case. Our shot's going to start a little bit wider, so we want to have some practicals kind of just around. So let's go ahead and make sure that groups is selected at the top here. We go to groups, and you can see all of the LightArchitect assets that you've added to your scene. So if we select our standing work light and then press Shift D, then we've just duplicated our standing work light. So let's just start placing some practicals. Give it some kind of a cool feel. Maybe we want to have some floor work lights along this area here. So let's go ahead and do that. We can go to floor. Floor work light will come into your scene. Something like this. Let's go ahead and just drag this back. We'll put one in the corner here. And we'll just put another one, drag it here. Just add a whole bunch of these. And then we'll press Shift D to duplicate. Grab it. Move over. We'll put a whole bunch in just different areas around the scene. Again, the process is very simple here. After we add the work light into our scene through our practicals panel here, while the light is selected, I'm just pressing G and then X, Y, or Z to drag it on the axis that I desire. Okay, so now we have some cool practicals in our scene. On our right panel here, let's go to rendered view and see how we're looking. Okay, so that's kind of a nice touch to have these bright spots in our background. It also might be cool to put something in the windows here. So let's go ahead and do that. We could add a handheld work light. This is kind of like a cage light. And let's go ahead and put some of these in the windows. Anyway, this is the general idea with placing practicals. I'm not going to have you guys wait as I place all of these, but just know that you can place them wherever you desire. Okay, so now on our right panel, we have kind of our ambient plus accents type look. We want to give her a little bit more light on her face. So what I want to do is just add a little bit of a far side key coming from the left side of her face. We could use some kind of 400 or 800 watt joker, but I know I'm going to want to diffuse the light pretty heavily, so I'm going to go ahead and use something like an M18 from further away. It's important to note that the cameras and the LightArchitect assets that you import into Blender 3D are treating Blender as if it's exposing at T2.8 at 24 frames per second at 800 ISO with a shutter angle of 180. So the general intensity of the lights will be around if your camera is exposing in that way. You can change how the camera exposes through exposure settings here. So for example, if you wanted to experiment how you would shoot at 2, since exposure at 1 is giving us T2.8, then to give us what it would look like at T2, we would just simply multiply this times 2, because T2 is twice as much light as T2.8. As you can see, the light has just doubled inside the scene. Okay, so let's continue with our far side key here. Let's go ahead and add an M18 through some kind of silk here to just create a far side key on her face. So let's go over here, make sure your top LightArchitect panel is selected, and let's go to Spotlight Units. And here we have all of our Spotlight units we've created, and then we'll go to M18 HMI, and when you click that, an M18 HMI will come into your scene. The controls for the M18 HMI are very intuitive as well. So again, at the bottom here, we have our position control, and then we can also rotate it. On the side here, we have our height control. So if we want to raise the height of the stand, we simply click on this empty right here, and then G, raise it up or down. Right here in front of the light beam, we have our tilt control. So wherever we point this, the light will point itself. Let's go ahead and move this M18 to create a far side key on her face. I'm going to go ahead and turn render view off. Just move this so it's pointing over at her. Raise it up, and then point it. So something like this. If we check intensity, it's going to be very hot right now. And we're also hitting a lot of this back wall here. But let's go ahead and get our silk in place and then adjust from there. Go back to material mode, and to add a silk, we'll go to silks and solids. And then we'll just go ahead and add a silk 6x6. Again, very similar controls. At the bottom here, we have the position and rotation control. So you can grab it by G or then rotate it by R. Then you have your silk height control on the side here. You simply press G to raise or lower your silk. Again, in the front, we have your rotation control. So let's go ahead and place this in front of our M18. So let's go ahead and press G and then Y. We'll place this. Let's press R and then Z to rotate. And then we can just bring this just so the light beam fills it up. Something like this. So now our setup is showing that we're pushing an M18 through a 6x silk onto our character here. It's important to note that due to rendering speeds, it's very difficult to have the light diffused in an accurate way for these silks. So these are actually emission frames. So that means that the frame itself is emitting light, and to change the light that's emitted, you actually have to change the intensity of the material on the silk frame. So to change the intensity of the light coming through your silk, you have to click on the silk frame. So right click and then go over to materials, and then make sure silk emission material is selected. And then to increase the intensity of light coming through the silk, you just change the strength here. So for example, for this scene, when I set it up before, I experimented with the intensity, and 160 got us to about the right spot. So now if we go over here to rendered view, as you can see, we have a nice far side key on her face, creating some shape. But unfortunately, we've also lit the background pretty heavily as well. So what we want to do is on our left side here, where we're controlling all our lighting setup, we want to put a cider on our light to cut the back wall so that only our character is being lit by the silk frame. So to do that, we're just going to go to our silks and solids panel here. And then I'm just going to use a hanging 12x12 solid and click that. And again, it's going to come right in the center of our screen here. For this one, there's not really any controls. It's just grab the actual solid itself and just press G and move it around as you like. So we're just going to position this so that the light coming from the silk is only hitting our character and not the building itself. So we'll just place this here. We'll press RZ and rotate it. Now we have a nice cider on our silk frame here. And if we go back to rendered view on this side, as you can see, we're getting a nice far side key on her face, but we've eliminated the light hitting the background. But we do want the light coming from our M18 in silk a little bit cooler. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the silk, and then we're going to click on our color here and just bring it a little bit cooler. And then if we go to rendered view, we get a nice cooler light. So this is looking pretty nice, but we just want to add one more light, just kind of an edge to her left shoulder here. Let's go ahead and get out of render mode. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add a little 650, giving her a 3/4 backlight, kind of motivated from these work lights here. Let's go ahead and go to our LightArchitect panel, go to Spotlight Rigs, and we'll go to Tungsten Spot Units, then 650 for now. And then again, our light will come into the center of our scene, and we'll just drag this and position it. Select this, raise it all the way up, then rotate. Just go ahead and point this toward her. To change the properties of a spotlight unit, you simply select the light coming from it. So as you can see, this beam right here, you go ahead and right click on that beam and then go to your spot unit panel, and then you can change some of the properties here. So let's give it a little bit more of a warmer feel. Maybe it's like a sodium vapor type look. So let's just go ahead and bring that a little bit kind of orange, something like that. Let's see what that does for us here. Alright, so as you can see here, the 650 warm kind of sodium vapor style backlight, I feel like really added a nice touch to the scene, brought her out from the background a bit. Now there are things we could do to make this scene a little bit better, but this tutorial is already running a little bit long, and I want to show you guys how to add some awesome rain to your scene as well. So let's go ahead and go back to material mode. So what we're going to do to add rain is we're going to go over to our second LightArchitect panel, the build panel, and then you're going to go to bonus, and then you're going to go to rain system. You go ahead and click on that, and that will add this rain simulator to your scene. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this over to above our character. So the rain is going to emit from this area right here. So something like this maybe would be nice. And then what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and run the simulation. Go ahead and click this button here to make sure you're at the beginning of your timeline here, and then just press play. And then as you can see, we have rain being simulated onto our scene. You're going to have to give it a few seconds until it reaches her, but then as you can see on our right panel here, rain is coming down on our actor, and then go ahead and click pause. And now we've created a rain simulation inside of our scene. I do recommend you do any kind of simulation last. It does eat up the memory in your computer, and as you can see, my computer is starting to slow down. I just wanted to show you guys that you do have the possibility to add awesome rain effects to your scene inside of Blender 3D. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed these videos. This is the last of the LightArchitect basic training videos, but I will be uploading specific tutorials in the future as well. I'll see you next time.